Wow. If you wanted an end to a season, you got it. As the NFL gets what they wanted, a chaotic asinine end to their NFL season does land the Pittsburgh Steelers into the postseason. The Steelers will be playing for a chance to appear in the Super Bowl. Whatever you think of their chances, we will see in that first round matchup, that wild card round matchup against the Kansas City Chiefs. Sunday Night Football coming up this coming Sunday. The Steelers do get in despite some chaos. They had to beat Baltimore. They do it. They take overtime despite facing a backup quarterback. They need Jacksonville to beat the Colts. Jacksonville just dominates the Colts. The Colts apparently can't play in Jacksonville. Wentz helps them out. And then they needed it not to be a tie in Sunday Night Football just last night between the Raiders and Chargers. If they would have tied, they both would have got in. That went to overtime. And in the final seconds, in which the Raiders head coach actually admitted they discussed actually letting the clock run out and tying, that would have eliminated the Steelers. The Raiders win it. I'm actually happy for Derek Carr. The Chargers are eliminated and the Steelers do get in. This is Mic'd Up here on Pittsburgh Sports Live, Pittsburgh Sports Now, and of course also Steelers Now. I'm Mike Asti, and I'm going to be joined by Mike Vukovcan. We are going to talk about the Steelers getting in, the wildness of that final day of this NFL season, the Steelers' chances possibly, and picking some of these games here as we trek towards another Super Bowl. Mike, wow. I mean, I'm sigh of relief, I guess, for the Steelers and their fans, but I'm almost out of breath even covering it. It just was wild. And I know some people don't like the tie scenario in general, although, and while I hate it too, it's hard to argue the NFL didn't get what they want. Ratings, fan bases that were not going to be involved in that final day were engaged, were involved. The Steelers do enough to get a win, even though it wasn't impressive, and they get in the playoffs. What are your thoughts about the Steelers getting into the postseason and kind of the situation in that final day, even if ties should be removed, although then you would have not had as much chaos as you did in that final day of the season?
Well, first of all, the NFL, they're just geniuses, whether it's I don't know how you put it, but yesterday, normally last week of the regular season, I guess this was the first week 18. But
this is week 18, right?
Yeah. Normally last week of the season is garbage. And right. Yesterday was one of the most compelling days. I'd have a hard time. My memory isn't what it used to be, but watching the Raiders or the Steelers game at 1, the 49ers game at 4:00 where they needed to win to get in, and that went to overtime. And then the game last night, which is one of the most bizarre, best games that I've ever seen.
It was a good game. Yeah. Better than the Steelers.
It was a hell of a game. Yeah,
right.
It was Justin Herbert is
the
first thing I would do is the coach from the Raider or the Chargers, Brandon Staley. I would fire him today.
Yeah, that was rough. The Raiders' conversation about trying for a tie was irrelevant because they called that timeout. You had to give it more time.
It's not even for that. But if you follow them all season, I've kind of watched them a lot this season. I'm a fan of Herbert. The guy thinks he invented football. He's one of these guys that he's an analytics guy. He's a Harbaugh clone as far as thinking he's the smartest guy in the room with going for it on fourth down and everything.
Right.
The decision he made in the third quarter yesterday to or whenever it was, I think it was the third quarter, going for it at your own 15-yard line on 4th and 2. Moves like that in the playoffs.
Harbaugh would have done that, right?
Yeah, there's no question. And because of Harbaugh's decisions during the season to go for it on 4th down, his team is not in the playoffs.
Sure.
But that guy's a moron. But that was one of the best games I've saw. And the ending of it, people aren't bringing this point up as far as the ending, as far as why they went for it. If they would have tied, they would have had to play the Chiefs in the first round, as opposed to playing as opposed to playing the Bengals.
That's a great point, because people were talking on Twitter and even texting me in conversations where, why don't they just take a knee? Why are they even playing? They were playing for a reason. The seeding matters, the 6th versus the 7th to get in. Yeah, it did actually matter to those teams.
And plus they had some respect for the they had some respect for the rivalry. The Chargers and the Raiders.
You want to eliminate your rivals.
Yeah, exactly. They have a heated rivalry over the years. It's a good rivalry, and I respect the Raiders organization for playing. If they would have tied yesterday, I would have had no problem with the tie because of the way if you had to watch the game. It was both teams are playing hard. Both teams weren't doing anything to disgrace the game.
Sure.
And if it ended up in a tie, it's a tie. I'm not into this no tie thing just because this is a unique situation. I don't think this has ever happened before in the NFL. So I wouldn't overreact to no ties unless this becomes a,
you don't mind ties though, just in general, because the NFL didn't have ties for a long time. It's not like you need the ties. They added the ties as part of, and then they eventually added another game to the season. And the difference of ties, I guess, for me in the NFL, why I don't like it in hockey and other sports, they collect points with the ties, so you don't have this scenario because it's just total points that helps you eventually get in. You have ties off record. I don't know, like even the Lions game. I covered the Lions game. They were a winless team. They tied, and we were treating them as if, oh, big deal. You guys didn't lose. You can't be 0-17. Isn't this great for you, even though you're going through a struggling season? They were mad at us. They were down in the dumps. They acted like they lost the game, and they didn't win it because they tied. So it feels like ties just are to me.
I get it. I get it and everything. But my only point is, if there were a lot of them, then I would say, that this is becoming ridiculous here. But if you go back through the records every year, there's probably hardly
like one or two.
There's one or two ties, if that, a year. So I just don't think I just think we're focusing on it because it's the here and now. It happened, but I don't think ties are a league-wide issue in the NFL. But hell of a week 18, man. I tell you what, the NFL, I don't. People bring up everything fixed and everything else. It's an unbelievable product.
They couldn't have fixed it that well. No, let me put it that way. There's some smart people to run the NFL, obviously, to be $1 billion enterprise. They couldn't have fixed it that well. That's a Disney movie right there. And not only that, Mike, to have the Steelers be the team that benefits with their aging quarterback, the Hall of Famer in his last ride, and the Raiders, a team that squeezes in and be in that last game after everything they went through this year. Another factoid, first time since the early 60s, you had a team remove a head coach or have him step down. He resigned middle of the season, change coaches, and still get in the playoffs with the whole Gruden mess. Their best receiver is right now awaiting hearings. He's in jail, for being drunk and inadvertently killing someone and that whole drama. And Derek Carr, to me, has emerged as a really leader in sports. He handles everything so well. Yeah. If they would have lost, he would have sat up there and said, hey, we gave it my best. I love my guys. He's still trying to lead Ruggs, who's not on the team anymore. So, and that's just the tip of the iceberg. There's several other dramas. They had to release another player for stupidity that he did on TikTok with a gun in the video and talking about, I'm going to kill someone. And people don't even talk about that, but that occurred for them. Tons of drama, and they end up getting in. So the NFL got what they wanted. They got the ratings. I guarantee you they got more ratings for that Sunday Night Football game than you normally would have got if there was no tie scenario and those teams weren't playing for something. So they do get in. Mike Vukovcan, Mike Asti here, mic'd up on PSL.
Now it's the Chiefs, though. Now reality. The reality. The fairy, the fairy tale ending and the good story and all that. And now it's the Chiefs, where the Steelers are 13.5-point underdogs.
Yeah, on the road, toughest place to play. Back-to-back AFC defending champs. They still have an MVP candidate in Patrick Mahomes every season, except for this year. Didn't have an MVP year this year. The Chiefs weren't as great as they've been in recent years, but they hit their stride. They're winning. They're still really, really good, of course. They certainly could get it done yet again. What are your thoughts about that matchup? Do the Steelers have a chance? Can they have that magical ride that sent Jerome Bettis off with that championship? Can they do it again for Ben? Seems really unlikely, and this is almost the worst possible matchup for the Steelers with how these two teams shake down. But does Pittsburgh have a shot against Kansas City Sunday Night Football on the road?
Who the hell knows, because it's the NFL. Yeah. But I would say off the top of my head, unless they could really get to Mahomes, and I'm not just talking pressuring, I'm talking getting to him, sacking him.
Right.
offensively, I think they're going to have to go in there and they're going to have to pick somebody that they don't want them to have them beat them. Almost a little bit what they were doing with Waller last night. Sure. I think the Steelers have to try to whatever way they can eliminate Kelsey, and they're going to have to take their chances with Tyreek Hill, and you're going to have to put that to Hayden or whoever, whatever you're going to do. Mm-hmm. But they're going to have to double. I would try to eliminate Kelsey as an option, and they still have plenty of other guys out there. But as far as offensively goes, I don't know. With what I saw yesterday, I just think it's probably too simple, but it just seems as though whenever they let Ben just throw and be Ben, mm-hmm. I don't know who's behind that. I don't know if who's not wanting to throw the ball down the field. Is it Ben wanting to get rid of the ball quick and whatever crap we're seeing?
Is it his arm? Because he talked about that for years. That he do it?
Yeah, that's their only way is to let Ben be Ben and see if he has it one more time in the game, and that's it. But I just don't think they physically could score enough points unless they get defensive touchdowns or special teams touchdowns. I just don't think this team is capable of scoring 28, 30 points, which what the Chiefs are going to do. I just don't think the Steelers can match that.
Yeah, especially the way the Chiefs are playing now, their offense finally clicking. Earlier in the season, the Chiefs were struggling to get those 28 points they were accustomed to the last couple of years. So if you face that Chiefs team, maybe it would be different. However, to really be negative here for Steeler fans who are really happy right now, the Steelers faced that Chiefs team that was struggling earlier this season. The Chiefs still beat the Pittsburgh Steelers, and they did it with Kelsey out and Hill basically uninvolved with only a couple catches. So the Steelers kind of completed the recipe you need to do against the Chiefs, and it wasn't good enough. It's going to be a tough matchup. I mean, that's another thing. That's what the Raiders wanted to avoid. That's what anybody wants to avoid. Yeah, the Chiefs are a little bit less than they've been, but you don't want to face the Chiefs in the postseason. This is a battle-tested team, a coach who's also done it before, a great quarterback. They're younger. He can also scramble around. Unless TJ and that pass rush can really click, it's going to be rough there. I do want to ask you. Go
one
ahead.
thing I wanted to point out yesterday was, for the season, regardless of what happens next Sunday,
right?
And we got the news yesterday of Kevin Colbert, although they haven't made it official
after the draft.
He drafted them too. I know there was plenty of talk about it during the draft last year, right. But he, regardless of what happens, he put them in position as far as over the next few years of getting two really building blocks for the future with Harris and Freiermuth. Those players are gamers. And Najee Harris, I'll take 11 of Najee Harris's any day of the week. That guy got
he's a football player. Yeah,
he's a football player. Yeah, he's a team player. The guy plays hard. Home run draft pick, and I know that was the big topic. Needed the draft a lineman or whatever. They got themselves their. I
said it. I said they should have drafted an offensive lineman.
He's the face of the. He's the face of the. He's the face of the offense for the next few years. Right. And if they ever, he looked good this year. I don't know where he finished in relation to leading rushers in the NFL and all that, but assuming the offensive line is better next year, he looked pretty good this year. Not great. I think he looked pretty good. And he played behind a dog crap offensive line. Can you imagine what this guy does if you actually get him a real offensive line?
I think we've seen that he's really good. We've seen he can be elite. He's definitely a gamer. However, the offensive line being so bad definitely held him back. I mean, all the yards were there, the record, Franco's record, rookie record, all of that for the Steelers. He did do it behind a really bad offensive line. So that's tip of the cap to him. You got to figure, though, if the offensive line doesn't get better, it's not going to be that long of a career for him. It's going to be a problem. Only averaged 3.7 yards per carry going into last week, despite the big game. So that tells me the offensive line definitely derailed him. I was one of the guys that said they had to go lineman just because you can get another running back, and if the O-line sucks, nothing moves. And that's still true. But you can't say enough about Najee Harris being great. And Pat Freiermuth has become more than just a pass catcher that everyone knew at Penn State. He's become a great blocker as well. there's no need for Ebron anymore. That they have become the staples of that team. They got to figure out QB or it'll mean nothing. They got to figure out O-line or it'll mean nothing, but they definitely have two pillars. Before we get to pick some games here, so what we have around the NFL and that wildcard round outside of the Steelers, I think the Steelers winning is pretty unlikely. But hey, they got in, and getting in is better than not getting in. And this is a feather in the cap to Mike Tomlin too, to get this team in the postseason with everything they dealt with this year. The Steelers franchise are so far from even thinking of firing him, no matter what fans may want. It's absolutely crazy. So tip of the cap to all of that, and we'll see how they build in the post-Kevin Colbert era that he looks like he is retiring. TJ Watt ties Michael Strahan for the NFL sack record, does not break it. You had the controversy of a couple no sack, maybe sacks earlier. We know Michael Strahan got that record breaker of Favre laying down. TJ Watt even had a sack a week earlier that they discussed all through the game, all through the press box. I sat right next to the scores. They wanted to give it to him. They wanted to take it away. They wanted to give it to him, take it away. That thread through the game, he actually ended up getting credit for a half a one, and then it actually got him the Harrison mark earlier and the tie earlier. So he's lost some sacks this year. He's gained some sacks this year, but in that game, he lost the couple that some fans think he should have had. He eventually did tie it, but he ends up tying it despite one more game in the season. He played less games than Michael Strahan. I know the NFL maybe could look at this, but they're never gonna change things after the game's over. I can't see that, despite Ben and the Steelers putting a petition in. Did TJ get screwed here? He ends up tying Michael Strahan. He doesn't get the record.
Yeah, he did, because he tried to make a play. Huntley tried to make a play after the snap went off his butt. The play wasn't aborted. He tried to make a play, and I think TJ should have got a half a sack on that.
That would be the record. A half a sack would do it.
At the time, I was watching it, and I said, "Well, I don't know if that's a full sack," because him and I forget the whatever defensive line, but yeah, they're not going to do that to Michael Strahan. But
after the fact too. I mean, I can't see it after the fact.
No, they're not going to do that. Although they could, but a hell of a year. And the way it started with Watt, should they pay him? Are they going to pay him? They ended up doing that. And,
imagine if they didn't.
You got that guy. He's they have their bookends on offense and defense. Now they have to fill in the other thing, but pretty incredible season for TJ Watt. He's an effort guy. The only thing you worry about is how hard he plays. Mm-hmm. He's not the biggest guy in the world. He tends to get the injuries, but when he's on the field, he's one of the more dominant. Now the discussion is going to be, is it, him or Aaron Donald for Defensive Player of the Year? But it has to be. I shouldn't say has to be. You would think it's TJ Watt.
It's got to be TJ. It got to be TJ. Aaron Donald won it last year. You could rename the freaking award after Aaron Donald. I can't argue against Aaron Donald any season. He's a game wrecker. But TJ, to tie the record, and again, they're not going to give him the sack. I don't know if I would have gave it to him because Huntley wasn't. It would be in a crappy way to set the record. I see your argument for sure. It is similar to the Favre play, even though I hate the way that Strahan got that record off Favre. So because he did it there, I wouldn't have minded it. But it did look like he was setting himself back then to run. Who knows? But they're not going to go back to it. But he ends up tying the record. He at least ties the record. But to tie the record while he missed so many games with injury, to be Defensive Player of the Week 3 times, despite missing all those games and all those numbers, the historic season, he does so much more to a game, even separate from the sacks. I think if he doesn't get it this year, they're just giving it to Aaron Donald every single season. It has to be. It's got to be the end of the bridesmaid run for TJ Watt. And that's what he really wanted to start the year, even more than the sack record. So maybe he'll get that some other point. But even if he doesn't, he still tied him. He's in the record book to tie him. And he got to be Defensive Player of the Year. He just has to be. Running through these now, though, Raiders, Bengals. Who do you got?
Raiders, Bengals. I got the Bengals.
Okay, I think the Bengals.
I think their offense is gonna. Their offense is a little bit better than the Raiders' home field advantage, and assuming everyone's healthy, I like the Bengals.
Yeah, I thought maybe the Bengals and Joe Burrow were a year away. The time is now. They are set up for the future. They got a crew and they have their quarterback. I love Joe Burrow. I'm happy Derek Carr and the Raiders got in, but that's going to be tough. And the Raiders are clicking, but the Bengals are really clicking now, really confident after that big win over Kansas City. They feel like they can go all the way to the Super Bowl here, honestly. I got the Bengals there as well. Patriots, Bills.
Bills.
It's a rivalry in the postseason, I guess.
Yeah, Bills. They're my pick in the AFC. I think Bills.
Okay. You're giving it to us already. Okay.
Yeah,
that's Saturday night.
Bills in the Super Bowl. I think this will be the years. I think they have deficiencies, but their defense is really good, and I think Josh Allen's going to have a special playoffs.
And I think there's some pressure on him to do so. It's another year of them in the postseason. They've been there and done it before, but him and Diggs, not as good this year as they've been the last couple of years, him in particular. So if they don't get it done and he doesn't play well, especially against the rookie quarterback in Belichick, that's going to be a start of some Bills fans getting upset with him. And granted, obviously a great player, and this is a great run for the Bills. Can they get back there? First time since those 4 Super Bowl losses in the 90s. That would be something. And beating the Belichick Patriots, who it's amazing they're even in, honestly, with everything Belichick had to put together. They had a year off after how down in the dumps that roster was when Brady left. But I think Bills as well. Over in the NFC, and well, yeah, I'll leave the Steelers last. Over in the NFC, Eagles, Buccaneers, the defending champs with all the drama. They obviously don't have a lot of their weapons, including AB. They got Gronk the incentives. By the way, Antonio Brown, you see what Tom Brady did? He basically shoved his coach away and said, no, I'm giving my boy the money. He would have got you your incentive if you just didn't go crazy. He would have done it. He would have done whatever he had to do to get you your incentive. He got it to Gronk, got him $500,000. God, what an idiot Antonio Brown is. Who do you have? Bucks, Eagles.
This game's gonna be a lot closer than people think. I'm gonna go with the Bucks just because I'm not gonna pick against Brady in the first round. However,
sure,
I wouldn't be surprised on Monday if we're talking a week from today. If we're talking and the Eagles advance, I think it's gonna be. If I'm betting, okay, I'm taking the Eagles and the points. But I think this game's going to be really close. It wouldn't surprise me if the Eagles upset them.
I don't think Tampa Bay and Brady are going back to the Super Bowl. Something just tells me they're not. There's too much to get over this year. That roster is not what it was last year, and they're so banged up. But I do think they're winning this game. I don't think the Eagles are that great, even though they did get in, but they're playing okay enough. And maybe the Bucs will have some type of issue. Brady and the Bucs didn't play all that great in the early rounds last year, despite going through things and winning the championship. This is the first time since 93 you get 49ers and Cowboys in the postseason. And it was historic in the 90s. These are historic franchises. The Cowboys finally get in with a team they feel like they can finally win playoff games and finally do it. Dak's playing better now. So is Zeke Elliott, even though they struggled earlier in the year. Their offense finally putting it together despite struggling earlier in the year. You mentioned the 49ers with Jimmy G had to scratch and claw to get in. Who do you have in that wild card round matchup before the Steelers play on Sunday evening?
I'm going with the 49ers with the upset.
Wow. Man, Cowboy Nation. They can't get it. Even this crew.
I like this 49ers team. Okay. They're my type of team. They're able to run the ball with a few different type of people. I think they have weapons with Samuel, Kittle.
Maybe built for a playoff run because of
that's what I mean. They're good enough on defense. I like that team, and I think they're gonna. I'm going with the 49ers in that one.
Okay. I'm going to go Cowboys. They are the better team to me, the 49ers this weekend. I get what you're saying. I just can't imagine finally with this crew that is clearly good enough the Cowboys would lay an egg again in the wild card round and still not win a playoff game. That would just be a backbreaker. But, hey, it wouldn't be shocking at all. Before we get to the Steelers, we will leave them for last, even though it really seems pretty obvious right now. Steelers and Chiefs to cap off Sunday Night Football. The Monday night football game. We have a rare playoff matchup on Monday night. First time ever in the wild card round. We will have two teams play on Monday night. It's not the Steelers. Thought maybe it was a possibility because of Ben and his last one and the Chiefs. But instead, Mike, and I think they made the right call, you get what could be the game of the wild card round. You have a rivalry. You have a divisional matchup. You have a team that's picked to potentially win the NFC and go to the Super Bowl that hasn't been playing as well recently. Matt Stafford finally has a shot with a legitimate team a real solid roster around him. He's never had that with Detroit, even when they got in. Monday Night Football, the Rams and Stafford have pressure. They got to play better with all these moves they've made. It would all be for naught if they don't certainly advance out of this one. Against the Cardinals, Kyler Murray and a very sexy team that many thought could also make a run earlier this year. They never got Larry Fitz back. They obviously still have tons of weapons there. James Conner had a Pro Bowl year, former Steeler on the Cardinals. Who do you have in that matchup? That is, to me, that's a game to get ready to watch. It's going to be a good one, I'd imagine.
I'm going to go with Arizona. I think
that'd be an upset. I'd imagine that would be an upset. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's gonna. I think it's gonna be the best game of the weekend. I really would go with Arizona if they didn't have DeAndre Hopkins. That causes a little bit of concern, okay. But I still think they have enough weapons, and I think Kingsbury's offense. He gets the ball around to a lot of different players. Kirk, sure. I think Zach Ertz was a great pickup for them. And there's something about the Rams. The Rams are almost like the Chargers. You just always want to pick them. You think they're going to do it. They have the team, and then they get in position, and they're
not giving you a good feeling right now. You watch them.
No, yeah, there's something about them, and I like Matthew Stafford. I think he's a good quarterback. His play, however, the last coming down the season hasn't been very reassuring for the Rams. There's something about that organization that I think they just try to buy their way to a championship, and they have a good team. Arizona has a good team, so I don't think it won't be a black eye for either team losing. But I'm going to go with Arizona on this one.
I'm going to go Rams. But I agree. They're not playing well now. They don't give you a good feeling. They did get to the Super Bowl a couple of years ago, so it's not too far. They kind of did get over that hump, unlike the Chargers. But yeah, they have tried to buy a championship. They tried to build chemistry late. It's not, bringing Von Miller in, bringing OBJ in. They're finally feeling like they're part of the team. OBJ with that touchdown game winner a couple weeks ago. But still, Matthew Stafford's not playing well right now. And I do think, honestly, with Detroit, if you look at the numbers, he had a borderline Hall of Fame career. If he can get one postseason run out of it, I feel like he's going into Canton someday. But if he ends up collapsing, doesn't play well here, that's the only non-defense of him, is he hasn't played well in those playoff games with Detroit when they finally did get, even if the roster wasn't nearly this good.
I'm going to guess, Mike, to say that at the end of the year, they're going to come out with him, and they're going to say that
he was hurt.
I think he's hurt.
That's the thing, because that's my counter.
He doesn't look the same as he did the beginning of the season, or at least middle of the season. Something looks off with him right now, and I'm not going to be surprised at the end if they're going to announce that he has some sort of surgery or something, because he just doesn't look the same as he did at the beginning of the season.
Yeah, let me put you this way: I think the Rams are going to win this one, but when you bring in Matthew Stafford, a borderline Hall of Famer, and you get rid of a quarterback that did lead you to a Super Bowl a couple of years ago, even though he's clearly not as good, and maybe that was more of the team, you have pressure to have at least a deep playoff run, at minimum the championship game here, I'd imagine, even though it's the first year and they're trying to build chemistry. If they lose this matchup, this is kind of doomsday, especially in a media market like LA. Stafford probably would get killed. The only way to save him, and the only way that it wouldn't happen, is if he is hurt. If he's not hurt, he's going to get just blasted by the media there, and the fans may turn on him, because this is I know the Cardinals are good, and this is a bad matchup to anyone to have, but there's pressure on the Rams to get out of this because of what they did. They are paying tons, and they got tons of Pro Bowlers on this roster and All-Stars, and to not even get one playoff win would just be catastrophic for all of that. Steelers Chiefs, though, to close up shop here. The Steelers get in, they get Ben a playoff game. They do win against his rival, his greatest rival, where it all started, on the road against Baltimore after the week earlier, that Cinderella story, winning on Monday Night Football. I was there for that one. It's been a magical last 2 weeks for Ben. Does the magic run out? It is Kansas City. It is on the road. You'd rather be in the playoffs than not. That's a feather in Tomlin, Ben, and everyone else's cap with everything they've dealt with this year. To me, they're still an average team, but they took advantage of what they had to take advantage. The Chiefs are not an average team, though. Certainly haven't been the last couple of years, even when they played like it earlier. They could turn it on at any time. I got the Chiefs winning this. I think they're still going to win this by 7 to 10 points. I don't think it'll be a mollywhopping, but I think they'll comfortably win. Do the Steelers have a chance here? Are you going to be picking the Steelers, or is it still Chiefs?
No. And it's not so much it's not so much how good the Chiefs are as far as why I'm picking. I just don't think the Steelers are physically capable of scoring enough points. Unless they're,
we haven't seen it. We have not.
Unless Patrick Mahomes has an awful game, and the defense is Highsmith and Watt and everybody, Hayward go crazy, causing turnovers and gives the offense short fields or scores themselves. I just don't see this team. And the offensive line isn't good enough to ball control and run the ball with Najee Harris. I just don't see. I just don't know where the points are coming from, and because of that, I actually think the Chiefs will cover the 13-point spread.
Okay, yeah, I could. I mean, I don't think the Steelers have a chance to win this.
Yeah, it's bad to go out that way, but this team just isn't physically there yet. They don't have enough people to compete yet with somebody like the Chiefs in that venue.
Yeah, and honestly, it sucks to go out that way, I guess. But you'd rather go out losing a playoff game than even winning your final regular season game and not getting in the playoffs. Ben would say that every day. You want to get in. You certainly want to get in, better than not. And Marino got absolutely destroyed in his last playoff game. It doesn't take away from his legacy. So, yeah, I don't see how the Steelers win that game. I would be shell-shocked. I would be shell-shocked. That would be the upset of the last several years in the postseason when you look at how these teams are playing, despite who the franchises are. So I think I got the Chiefs as well. We will see. Mike you gave that dark horse Bills pick in the AFC really fast. Do you want to give the NFC representative now? Do you have that for me?
Yeah, it's going to be Bills and Packers. Bills and Packers in the Super Bowl.
Obviously, Green Bay has the bye. I'll tell you, if they don't get in after back-to-back years of losing that NFC title game, we're going to see more offseason of drama. But if the Packers do get in, that may quiet the door, and maybe he'll go back to Green Bay and finish it out there like some others did. I
don't know how that's going to go yet, but
if they get in, he won't be upset. If he doesn't, they will.
Yeah, the way they're playing right now, offensively, they got two guys in the backfield that can.
They got pressure too.
Yeah, they can play with whatever game you want to play. You want to have him throw for 400 yards, he could do that. He has two guys in the backfield that can slow the game down a little bit with Dillon and Jones. And defensively, they're all back. They're healthy.
And the field's wide open. The Bucks look lesser. The Eagles aren't going to go that far. Neither are the Cowboys or 49ers. And the Cardinals and Rams both look like they're vulnerable.
Yeah, they have
wide open.
They have the best player. They have the best player in the NFL right now. They're going to have home field advantage at a really difficult place to win.
Get cold.
Yeah. So I think it'll be a good Super Bowl. The young generation of quarterback with Allen versus Aaron Rodgers. That's my pick. Packers to win the Super Bowl, but Packers versus Bills.
Okay, so you have some more heartache for Bills fans, the new generation of Super Bowl losses.
Some things stay the same.
Yeah, a new generation of Super Bowl losing. But hey, getting there is better than not, at least in reality, even if some don't feel that way. A lot of pressure on Green Bay to finally get done with Rodgers as well. It would even be more of an upset than the last couple of years if they don't get there for everything I just named, for those teams being vulnerable. But hey, things could certainly happen. I'm never going to count out Brady again for doing it with the Bucks either. Certainly with, I think, a first-round matchup they're certainly going to get out of, and then it's wide open after that. Mike, that'll be it for this show. We'll have more of these before we look to crowning Super Bowl champion, I am sure, but wow, what a final day of an NFL season it was. It was asinine to say the least, but the NFL certainly got what they wanted. So as much as people can be upset, and we can debate it all day, they're not going to change what just happened. If it's not broke, don't fix it. It's not broken right now. It's going well for the National Football League. For Mike Vukovcan, I'm Mike Asti. For all of us here at PSL and throughout the Sports Now family of networks, buckle your seatbelts, and as a wise man must said, and in fact is still saying, get your popcorn ready for a great NFL